Are you going to say that? Are you going to say you've no objection? That the real problem is the Jewish state? Come on, be serious.
So the Jewish state doesn't have nuclear weapons? Is that what you're saying?
Well, now, I appeal again to the fair-mindedness and intelligence of the audience. Did I say that?
No, but...
Did I in any way imply it?
No, but...
No. Did I not begin with a throat clearing, which I'll amplify if you will, about my long record of work about this, my defence of the Israeli dissidents who published the news about Israel's illegal programme and gone to jail for it. I can refer you to all that if you like. But my point was directed specifically to you. Yeah. I said, does this, in your mind, make the destruction of human rights in Islamic countries OK or not?
No.
Good.
OK, no, let's hear from Walid.
Well, that's progress of a kind.
This is, I think, highlights the really difficult, I think personally intractable situation that now confronts the world in dealing with Iran's apparent nuclear weapons regime. And I hear today that the UN's still arguing that they're not developing weapons. But whatever you think about that, there is a problem because you do get questions like this, whether or not you agree with Christopher that there's a lack of moral seriousness about that question. You're always going to get that question. The minute the conversation turns to Iran, it is going to be deflected towards Israel. And so the problem is that if you're interested in disarming Iran or somehow reigning in that regime, it's very hard to do that in isolation without also engaging in some kind of agreement that's going to bring Israel into the mix. And, of course, the US, who also have nuclear weapons. I'm encouraged by the fact that President Obama is talking about a nuclear-free world and that when he headed the UN or presided over the UN Security Council this week, which I think the first time an American president has ever done that, the vote to rid the world of nuclear weapons was unanimous. That's all good. But now the really, really tough politics starts, and that is the politics of dealing with an Iranian regime that, frankly, probably sees very little incentive, if any, to try to disarm or to become less evil. It's got every reason to remain as evil and perhaps have become even more evil than it is. And Israel is going to have to be part of that discussion, whether they like it or not, whether the US likes it or not, because without that, I just can't see how there's a way forward on it.
Tony, sorry, I simply must say this. I'm really sorry. Implied in both what Walid has said and the lady questioner is the idea that Iran is perfectly entitled to have nuclear weapons. At least if Israel is, it is.
No, that's not what I implied at all.
The Iranian government, don't let's forget, says it doesn't want them and isn't planning to have them. And so if it turns out they are, it's not a problem to do with Israel. It's to do with them breaking every undertaking they've ever made at the United Nations, every undertaking they've ever made to the International Atomic Energy Authority, every undertaking they've ever made to the European Union negotiators. It means that international law is completely meaningless. And yet, when Mr. Ahmadinejad tests missiles, he says this is part of our nuclear program. How is that part of a peace?
Yeah, can I just say...
Their party, their proxy party, Hezbollah, I've been to its rallies in Beirut. Do you know what the symbol of the party now is? What they put on the flag? A mushroom cloud, with a threat to the Jews written underneath it. Actually, when you go to meetings of the American Jewish Committee, you don't quite get that provocation.
Christopher, hold on. We're just going to hear from Walid, and I'm going to go to another question which is related.
I think that's a bit of a gross misreading of what I was saying. I'm certainly not implying that. But what I am saying is the real politic of dealing with this situation is that for the Iranian regime, if you put yourself in the position of the Iranian regime, that has now become such a grotesque, deformed regime that, in a sense, it has to perpetuate that deformity in order to survive. That's kind of the logic of those sorts of regimes. The minute you do that, they're now in a position where it's just going to be very hard to create the political environment for them to change course without dragging Israel in. Now, whether or not you want to say that Israel's acquiring of nuclear weapons is equivalent to Iran's, worse, better, whatever, that to me is not the point as far as real politics is concerned. How are you going to get that change to occur without incorporating Israel into the conversation?
Christopher, I'd like to sort of put a line under this, but I just want to ask you one question and a brief answer if you could.
You mean I'm incapable of a brief answer? I'm going to be terse if I have to be.
OK, we'll answer this tersely. Israel, of course, did try and stop Iraq acquiring nuclear weapons by bombing a reactor. Would it be justified, in your opinion, for them to do the same in Iran?
What Israel did to the Iraq reactor was what the Iranians had tried to do, everyone forgets this, with their own Air Force a couple of months before. The Iranians had a huge sigh of relief when the Israelis pulled off a raid they couldn't bring off themselves and disarm Saddam Hussein. There are a lot of people in the Sunni Arab world, believe you me, who hope that the Israelis take out the Iranian one in turn, but they can't say so in public any more than the Iranians could before. My own view is that Israel both cannot and should not attempt such an attack.
OK, well, we're going to move on again. Well, actually, look, you've had your hand up for a while. I'm going to take your question. Lady in the front there.
Look, my one question is basically, or my one comment, or passing comment, is that so many times you've brought up women in Islam. I'd just like to correct that I've read the Quran, and all Muslim scholars would agree with me that Islam gives women a lot of rights. We over and over give women in Islam through the Quran. I may not say it through individuals who preach the religion, but Islam through the Quran gives women a lot of rights, and I need that to be heard. I need that to everyone to understand and hear that. I mean, I am a young Muslim woman myself. I sit before you, I have a voice, and I can speak to you, and I can look you in the eye, and I do have my rights. And when I go to Iran, I'm actually Iranian as well, so when I go to Iran, I also have my rights. I need it to be heard that the Quran, Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us our rights. People, individuals in countries and people who represent our religion may not, and they may do the wrong thing to sort of stand in front and show us religion and preach us religion, but Islam does.
All right, we're going to take that as a comment, a very passionate one at that. OK.
Well, no. No, we're not. No, we're not going to take it as a comment. I can see your face, I can see your hair, and I can see you sitting in an audience with young gentlemen. Don't you tell me you can do any of that in Iran.
I can, though.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you cannot.
I can. In Iran, in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where I have been, my hair would be out. My hair would be out because my veil would be little. My hair would be, it may be covered a little bit, but just like in the Bible, in the letter to the Corinthians, it says to cover your head, to be modest.
It's a shame she spoiled what could have been a perfectly good statement.
All right, OK, I'm sorry.
But my modesty would be there. I mean, you've been talking about these cheap jokes and things throughout this whole conversation, but you're the only one making the cheap comments.
You insult your sisters in Tehran who are being beaten,
and
raped every day when you say that they have their rights in the Islamic Republic. It's an insult to the women of Iran.
I do not. Astaghfirullah.
OK. We're nearly out of time. You're watching Q&A live. If you'd like to join the audience, register on our website. The address is on your screen, abc.net.au/Q&A. We have one last question. It comes from Pam Collicott.
Many non-believers facing death change their minds about religion. Is that fear or comfort?
OK, we're going to have quick answers from everybody. Frank Brennan.
It's often both.
Anne Henderson.
I would say exactly the same. It's, again, what I said before. Where there is no meaning, people find God. And that's their comfort. There's even supposed to be a God gene, I think someone thought of. And I don't understand it totally, and some part of me does. So, you know, I would say I agree with Frank. It's fear and comfort.
Wally Daly.
Well, let's not ignore it's a perfectly rational decision to make at that point. You're on your deathbed, there's absolutely no point not believing in God at that point.
Because you might be right.
You may as well jump on a team that, if it's wrong, who cares? You know?
I would say God knows. I mean, you know, unless you're from a team that, you know, dies repeatedly.
When Voltaire was dying, a priest came and said, "You should renounce the devil," and he said, "This is no time to be making enemies." But it's a religious falsification that people like myself scream for a priest at the end. David Hume very famously didn't and was witnessed by James Boswell not doing so. Most of us go to our ends with dignity. If we don't, and if it is the wish for fear or comfort, then both of these things are equally delusory, as religion is itself.
And I think what we've... Thank you. We've proven, I think, tonight that this kind of discussion is worth having, but that is all we have time for. I'm sorry to those people who still got their hands up. Please thank our panellists, Frank Brennan, Christopher Hitchens, Sally Warharp, Waleed Ali and Anne Henderson. All right. Next week, another iconoclastic panel, including the feminist author with dangerous ideas, Germaine Greer, Gruen transfer Adnan Todd Sampson, the Labor Party's Belinda Neal, and the Liberal Party backbench rebel Corey Bernardi. That's all we have at the moment. We'll have one more by then. So join us next Thursday for another great Q&A. Good night.